They've got no idea how far I'll go to bring her home.
Dad! Where are you?
I'm coming, Lily!
Rated M for mature.
I'm coming, Lily!
Rated M for mature.
Okay, we're gonna get just right into it today. If you watched my first stream, you'll know that I worked a little bit with the Overlord plugin extension from Battle Axe, and same thing here. Except I'm not going to show you the creation of the character. It's just a really simple character I had to make for a project I'm working on, and I got to make this character run. So I thought, why not do a little tutorial? You see a lot of walk cycle tutorials, not as many run cycles. Honestly, I've done so many of both, but you know, run cycles are a little bit more fun. You can be a little bit more creative with them. So I'll just get right into it. We're going to do the same thing that we always do, which is move our anchor points and parent our appendages. So I'll start with the parenting first. Shoulders and neck, go to torso. Torso goes to pelvis. Grab everything that goes to the head, bangs, ears, brows, pupils, mouth, ear, hair. What goes to the head goes to the neck goes into the neck. Thighs go to the pelvis, foot to the calf, calf to the thigh, foot to the calf, calf to the thigh. Forearms, shoulders, hands go to the forearms. Now we lower our opacity and we start moving our keyframes, or our anchor points. Head anchor points somewhere where it would connect to the neck. Neck where it would connect to the torso. You get the picture. Torso is usually somewhere right around the center of your pelvis, so you can rotate almost as much as you want without breaking. Shoulder you want sort of in that center of the circle of the, if you imagine the top of your shoulder as a circle, right in the center is somewhere where you want to be. Same with the forearm. When you bend it, you don't want to see anything poking out. Hands seem like they're fine. Pelvis, I always like to lower this a little bit. Get more in the butt area. Upper thighs. See how I got a little bit poking out there? I don't want that. So I'm going to actually raise up my thighs a little bit. Move this one in a little bit. That's better. And my cat is meowing at the door, so one second. No. Come on in. Sorry about that. When I close my office door, my cat can't get to her food, but it keeps the heat in and also makes the audio a little bit more bearable. I don't have like a really have like a designated mic or anything for this. Maybe if I start streaming enough, I'll invest in one. But for now, the computer audio is good enough for me. Keep cycling through these things. It's another rather simple character. Not super realistic or anything, but it's the style of the piece that I'm working on. But usually, as I said in the last video, simpler the character, usually the more you can get away with. Let's see here, did I get everything? I think I did. Everything that's important. Moves the front of his hair up a little bit. So I'll swing it around. It's not going to move much if it does. Alright, done and done. Save. Next thing we do is to just head straight into Duik, right? Easy peasy. This one will be a short one. Hopefully be a little bit more concise. Not make you watch 2 hours of me goofing around. I'm going to go into our auto rig, plan to grade, full character. 5 calf foot, that's correct. Next. 5 calf foot, that's correct. Next. Always wants to put a thigh where the shoulder. I was hoping renaming things differently would help this time, but it didn't. Shoulder, forearm, hand, correct. Can never get these arms to pop up correctly, no matter what I write the arm as. Shoulder, forearm, hand, head, neck, torso, pelvis. No tail. Aren't making an alien or a cat man or anything. Click on the little hidey guy, or little shy guy, because that gets rid of all the junk at the bottom. Good rule of thumb before you start hiding more stuff is just to play with the character. Make sure nothing's broken yet. Oh, jeez. I forgot I had to move my effects panel over because you guys can't see it. Where do I want to put this? Okay, my right arm is bending backwards, so we hit this clockwise, check that. Right now his arm is bending the correct way. This arm seems to be bending the correct way. He can lean forward, he can lean back. He can look up, he can look down. He can bend. Cool. Alright, now we can start hiding things we don't need. Everything works. I usually change these to the brightest color I have. Lock those. I rarely use CC pelvis. I don't even really like to mess with it unless I'm doing something really specific, so I'll usually hide that. I'll usually lock everything and start hiding. So, shoulder we might need. Forearm, hand we don't. Some of this head stuff we may get into. Neck we don't. Hair we don't. torso. I don't know. We may get into it. I may add a little bit more bounce to this guy. Pelvis, we don't though. Foot, calf, foot, calf. Alright, now we've maximized our space. We can unlock our controllers at least. The other thing I usually do is I'll usually take, right now this is a grandson character. I'll usually just name it like _base. Like if I ever want to just get back to this character standing here unposed and with no keyframes on him, I can, so I'll duplicate that and name, just like start naming them numerically. So now if I like, let me close out all this other stuff. So now I'm on grandson 1. If I like add a ton of keyframes onto this guy, and I'm just like, oh, I wish I could get back to the first one, I've still got a copy in grandson base. Alright, next thing is to start making a run cycle. To do that, I'm first going to make a ground layer just as reference. So I'll just pop in a solid, bring it down to where his feet are, and I'll lock that. If you want to get real fancy, you can even make it go in here and make it a guide layer. And now it won't show up once you put your character into other comps. But that's just good for reference, so I can know where his feet should be hitting the ground. If you know walk cycles, it's typically 5 keyframes to make a walk cycle. And you've got just like your 2 poses. You've got your spread, and then you've got your like passing pose. And that's all you need for a walk cycle. For run cycle, you can get up to 8 or so keyframes. I don't know. It can vary depending on how much bounce you want or how much squish you want when he impacts the ground. My whole thing is I just like to start. I like to start where the arms are going to be, you know, at their maximum. So forward, like completely spread out. It's just easier later on when you're doing your loops. And if you know anything about runs, your arms are like this when you're in the mid-air. So I'm going to have to bring my pelvis way up. But I don't really want to lose where his pelvis naturally would be. So before I do anything, I'm going to put this little position keyframe on this pelvis. Get a rotation on there too in case I need it. I'm just going to pop that over here for now. And then I'm going to like pull him up here into the air. Since he's a kid and he's having fun and he's running, we'll make him get some max air here. He's pretty high in the air. It's a little cartoony to do it that way, but you know, that's what's fun about run cycles and cartoons, so you can get a little crazy. Right. And just like the walk cycle though, I'm going to go through and do the feet and pelvis first, because that gives you the basis for everything else. So we've got position and rotation on both the feet, and position and rotation on the pelvis. So I'm just going to go ahead like 3 frames. And then we'll bring back this keyframe we saved. We're going to bring that back, because that's going to be him hitting the ground. I'm going to bring his foot down. Right to where he hits the ground. This foot will come down a little bit. And bend backwards. You're going to have to ignore the arms for now. They're probably going to look weird for now, but unless you want to do it all in one go, which I really wouldn't recommend, it's just easier to focus on one or two things at first. The arms are just going to look a little weird. And then I might go ahead one or two frames, but I really wouldn't push it past that if you're going for like a cartoony look. And we're gonna bring the pelvis down even more. Because he's squishing down a little bit. His leg continues to carry forward. And then maybe one frame more, and even more. This is his maximum squish. And this is going to be our passing frame. So his leg is directly underneath his pelvis at this point. This leg is almost like right there too, right in the middle. Everything's kind of right in the middle. Get this a little bit bigger too. Sorry, didn't have that bigger. I like to be able to see everything, so I usually zoom out a little bit. Okay, then we'll go ahead, like, say another 2 frames. I don't know if I want to bring them all the way up. This is going to be our takeoff pose. I don't want him this high. Maybe close to about as high as he was when he was first impacting. And for this pose is always really easy to remember. It's like a nice straight leg. This leg's really almost mimicking the same angle. You're really about to launch off. Imagine you're about to launch off into the sky. And then this next amount of keyframes is really where you can have the most fun. This is where you decide how cartoony you kind of want this character to be. The more you add, almost the more cartoony it is. So we're going to copy our first pelvis keyframe when we were in midair, because that's where we're going again. And now you're basically now you've done one cycle, and you're basically just mimicking that again. You'll see adding more here gives him more float. So if you want your character to be really light and springy and floaty, like drag these, make more space in here for when he pops up. If you want him to have more weight and not be able to get as much air, say you got a really fat or heavy character, then maybe he would only, go up 3. Or you'd only do 3 frames to get to his maximum height. But he's a kid, so he's light, he's kind of cartoony, so we're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's about 7. Let's do 8. Alright. Well, my cat is destroying some paper. It's bugging me. Oh. Cats, man, they always need attention. The desk is also falling apart. Alright. So now, since we have one loop cycle, you can honestly add the loop out expression to the pelvis now if you want. I usually copy it and paste it just so I can have a visual reference of where the next keyframes are and I can snap to them. Let's see. I honestly want to make his fall. Right now we've got that fall at 3 keyframes. I'm going to make it 2. We'll just make him hit the ground quicker. It'll be a little bit snappier. He falls. Oops. Bring the foot down for touch. His foot comes down a little bit. And this foot slaps down. Moves back a little bit. So moves a little bit forward. Foot's dragging in the wind, so we bend it back a little bit. One more frame forward. Now we're in our passing phase. Foot starts to come back. Everything's sort of lined up in the middle. 2 more frames forward, and we're about to launch off the ground again. So this foot's back and straight. This foot's mimicking the same angle about pretty closely. Knee is up a little bit. I've been hitting my rotates. Don't forget your rotates. And that's essentially it. Now we can copy the first few frames, or our first foot frames, get those back. I have my feet way higher in the middle than at the beginning, so I'm going to bring these up a little bit. Copy them back to the beginning. The other thing to notice is just the shape the foot makes. You'll hear people talk all the time about how an animation is full of arcs. Everywhere you find animation, you'll find arcs. And just like that, in this foot, we have this nice little arc here. Arc, and then it slams down, goes back, arc, got it on both feet. So that's how I kind of know that I'm in the general vicinity. And even without knowing where the foot is, I can kind of move these around and know the more arc they are, the better it'll look. So let's watch what we have so far. Pretty stiff, but hey, it's a run, you know? I'm going to show you how to make it bouncier and more fluid as we go. One thing that I like to do that is a little bit, it's kind of a step you could skip if you were in a hurry or didn't really think it was worth it, but I did it in my walk cycle as well, is playing with these thighs. Moving these sort of act as your hips, you know? Your hips go forward and back as you walk. It's just how it works. They look a little bit more natural if we move these. So at the beginning, they're where they need to be. My right foot is back, so my right hip should be back. My left foot is forward, so my left hip should be forward. Midway through our run, that's going to change. So we're here now. Now see, this is my left foot. My left foot is back, but the hip is still way up here. We want to just shift and move it back. Opposite with the right leg. Shift and move it forward. And as you'll notice, you might have to readjust things now, because your legs can extend farther now that you've moved your hips. And that's okay. That's what you want. And then let's go to the very end and put our hips back where they're supposed to be. I also like to change these to easy eases, just so it's a little less stiff. It didn't really mess up any other parts. Oh, we're looking good. I'm not sure I love the timing yet, but I haven't added my eases yet. The next thing I'll usually do is add my eases. So the one spot you definitely want ease is right here on the pelvis when he's coming up. And I'll do it on the feet and the pelvis. So add an easy ease, and then I accentuate that easy ease. So I'll go in to my graph editor, as far as I remembered what that was called, and I just pull these handles and watch how that affects it. So we kind of, I didn't do it, I need to do it here too. So easy ease, go in here, zoom the fuck in because we can't see anything, and pull these. The more you pull them, the more spring you're adding to this jump. See how he springs up now? Like, woo, and he sort of hangs there a little bit longer too. It's a lot less stiff and a lot more cartoony looking. The other thing we're going to do is just make these first ones keyframes all easy eases too. So he's easing out at the beginning too. Sliding down. I don't know if I want this to be 2 frames after he hits or 1. I kind of like 1. Really snappy now. That's why I love runs when you're making them cartoony, because you can really just push how fast things go and just play around with the timing. Alright, that looks cool. What's next? Let me think. I really don't mind that. The next thing I would honestly do is get into the shoulder and the head. I usually move to shoulder and head and do arms last, because moving your shoulder controller, this guy, see how it affects your arms? So I don't want to spend a bunch of time placing the arms perfectly and then do my shoulder and have it get all jacked up anyways. And that's why I always do the arms last. So, rotate, position on the shoulder, rotate on the head. Sometimes I like to start off with the head being a little back. Like you're up in this is at your maximum height of your run, so you're kind of like catching wind, your head's back a little bit. If you want to make like a track star, a track athlete, someone who's a little less cartoony and floppy, then I would say, head straight, leaning forward. I actually like that too. Really trying to get some speed. Because if you think about when you run, you lean forward, and you lean down into the run. But sometimes it's fun to just make a goofy run of a character who's just like running sort of like that. But I don't know. Let's make this kid not super goofy, not a total weirdo. Have him lean forward just a little bit. He's a little athletic. He's not a total dweeb like I was. And save. You don't really have to move the keyframes at this point. I just basically pasted the exact same ones. I mean, I guess you could have his... No, I don't want to move him. Because we're going to have him squish down as because his whole body is squishing right now. He's feeling the impact of that hit. So he's up, extended, happy, goes down, hits the ground. Now he feels the impact of that hit, and his body sort of, his chest and head come down from that impact as well. Now he's coming out. I need to adjust this. This leg isn't straight enough anymore. And then back just a little bit. And sometimes I won't even do that. No, let's go all the way to when he's in the air. We'll copy our first keyframes back. I think that works. Let's copy them again so we've got the full loop. So I sort of all we really put in there was just that little bit of impact. All the other keyframes are duplicates, but it's just that little bit of impact. And I might bring it out of frame just so it lasts a little bit longer. And same as we did with the pelvis and the legs, I'm going to add those eases. And for the two when he's going up, I'm going to extend them so it matches. That looks pretty good, but the one thing you'll notice is that everything just looks a little bit too uniform. And just like I did in my walk cycle tutorial, this is something I just always like to do is I'll put the head 1 or 2 frames after the torso. And as you see how that just gives it just a little bit more naturalness. It's a little bit of secondary motion, as they call it, because the head is moving secondary to the torso. You know, the torso is affecting what the head is doing. It's a little bit delayed to get up to that head, the effects of the squish and run, the impact. So I think that's looking pretty good. We can move on to our arms now. And like I said, we had our arms basically positioned correctly when we started. Add a position. I don't think we'll need rotation again because normally I would add rotation, but just because these hands are balls, like literal circles, you won't even notice the rotation if I put it, so I'm not even going to waste the time. And then we go all the way to halfway. This arm would now be back. This arm would now be forward. It's a little hard to tell because his legs and arms are duplicates, but the rule of thumb is whichever leg is out front, which right now this is the right foot, the opposite arm is out front. So right foot out front, left arm out front. Opposites. This is your right, this is your left. This is your left, this is your right. And go to the end. Copy our first keyframes. Make them ease. And it looks like a goober because we don't have any, as I talked about earlier, arc on our path. It's just a straight line. We need this arm to come down. Lay down. You really have to play with these on the run. And I think I'm going to play with my timing here. I'm going to go to these middle keyframes. Going to go into my graph editor. I want these, yeah. You need to pull this so that these arms move a little bit quicker across the body. Because if you think about it, this is our passing frame, where everything should sort of be lined up with the middle of the body. So that's where we want his hands, right in the middle there. Same on the other side. Let's grab these last two keyframes, go into our graph editor, and pull these until the hands are in the middle of the body. That looks good. All right, now let's go back to doing our arcs. One hand at a time. So we've got the first arc. And let's do the second arc. Looks good. Let's do the other hand. Frames through it. Looks good. Usually if you match up these arcs, you'll usually be pretty good. So that looks pretty good. Let's check it out. Look at that! It's a snappy little, it's not very realistic, but it's like a snappy little cartoon run. I have to say I'm quite pleased with that in one go. I mean, at its base, this is a run. Like you can be done. However, there are things we can do to make it even better. And so this is, if I edited these videos right now, there would be a title screen that would come up that would be like advanced run or something like that. We're going to get a little bit advanced here. Not that advanced really, but just adding little extra things. For instance, the head. We can add a little extra bounce to this head. So let's put a position on it. So we hit the ground, and then we squish down. So when we squish, we're actually going to have the head squish down a little bit too. Actually, we're gonna line this up with our shoulder keyframes. It's basically the same timing. When it comes up, copy that first keyframe, copy and paste the whole thing. Add our eases. Get into our graph editor. Pull out handles. I mean, it's so subtle. Like, that's why I said before you were done. This is something that I would say general people wouldn't notice, this little bit of head squish we added. But me, I notice those little things. Everything's in the details. Details will take your work from being mediocre to being great. If you take the time to do these little sort of detail things, it'll really start to set your work apart from other people. Honestly, we're going to do the exact same thing with the torso. We're going to make the torso squish down a little bit. Torso squishes. It's like he's cutting a little fart right here. And he pulls right back up. Copy. You know the drill. At this point, add our eases, pull our handles, check my phone, make sure I'm not missing any texts. See, look at that. Like, I don't know if you are noticing it, but he has so much more spring to him now. It's just... wow, I love it. I love it. This is the funny thing is this is such a minor aspect to the animation I'm working on, but screw it. You know, sometimes you gotta do things for yourself. Also, kind of like we did with the thighs, I could have done something similar with these shoulders, but I really don't know that it's worth it. I honestly think his arms look fine, so I'm not going to go into the shoulders. Something else you can do is you could do the brows and the pupils and the mouth. Let's make a little null. Put it right in the center of his face. We'll call this face control. And we'll parent that to the head. And then we'll take our brows, pupil, and mouth, and we'll actually parent those to the face control. So now, we put a position on the face control, maybe even a rotation. So now we can sort of move his facial features, give him a little bit more of a 3D look to him. So when he's hitting the ground, face goes down, rotates out. It's like he's looking down. Back up. And all these are the same exact timing as those, as the torso. We're just following the same pattern, but just adding a little extra elements that give it more life. Yeah. We can, and like, if you want to get really, really into it, we go into our brows. Go actually into the layer, the shape layers. Oh, I gotta. Oops. I don't think you can do that. I have to move my anchor point. Okay. Now we're in our brows layer, so we can control our two brows. On these brows, we're going to cycle down, and we're going to put a keyframe on position and rotation. So when he's up, brows are up. When he hits down, we're going to make him grimace a little bit, like he's hitting the ground. And bring the brows down a little bit. That's the same as everything else. I'm just going to keep following that same pattern. Okay. Add our eases. Looking good. Let's have some fun with the bangs. So he's coming down. Maybe the bangs are fluttering up slightly. He hits the ground. Bangs smack back against his face. Goes up. They return. You can honestly really get in here and have some fun with the paths. This is getting real cray-cray. If you wanted to get in here, you could play with paths. Like his hair's flying up a little bit almost. The hair should snap back a little quicker than it does. You even mess with the position. Yeah, it's like he's coming up, so his hair's getting pushed down. He's coming up, hair getting pushed down, going down, hair raises, slams. That's the sequence. Sometimes you gotta play with it a little bit. His hair's getting pushed down a little. It's a little too much for me. Let's move it up just a hair. Get it? I dig it. Hair's got a little flutter to it. The only other thing I usually do is pupils, since these are just simple dot eyes. I'll do a little thing on the, I'll do a little keyframe on the scale. Take the y-axis down to 10. That's like a little blink. So whenever he hits, like the impact right here, let's make him do a little blink. Like the impact's kind of making him blink. Alright, and there you have it. If you want to make this character loop, the easiest, I mean, you can go through and on every single thing you can do add a loop out, quote, cycle, quote, comma. Actually, you don't even need that. Loop, out, cycle, just that. Loop, out with a capital O, parentheses, quote, cycle, end parentheses, and then end bracket. I can't even. I'm like brain farting. Semicolon. And that is your. That's like your basic loop. So when you put that on a property, it'll just loop forever. Those keyframes will loop eternally. So you can go through and do that on all of these properties, or you can, let's make a new comp real quick. Bring grandson 1 in there. So see, right now we don't have him looping. All you have to do is hit Command Option T on Mac. That brings up your time remap. So now you can time remap this layer. So that the time remap essentially gives you an end keyframe and a beginning keyframe for your comp. So let's scroll through our comp and see where exactly we end. I think it is right here. It is. Add a keyframe. Go back 1 frame. Add a keyframe. Delete this end keyframe. We do not need it. Go back to where we ended. This is the end of our cycle. We're going to copy this first keyframe. Now, oops. Now we can option click our stopwatch, so we can add an expression. Now, if you put the loop out expression here, you only have to do it once. And he should loop forever. See? And now if he's in a comp that you've got, you can do whatever the hell you want with him. I tend to like to put my anchor point either at his center of mass or where his feet land the floor. So now you put him in another comp and you can make him run across screen or something. Do whatever you want with him. Way too fast. Bam, we got a little guy running across screen. He's still moving a little too fast. There you have it. That is basically it. Hope you enjoyed this little tutorial. Hope it went better. I know it went better than the first one. I'm getting a little bit more used to this whole thing. But be sure to follow me on Twitch, TNT_studio on Twitch. If you want to see more stuff like this, I'll try to post these occasionally when I... Was that Spike? I'll try to post more of these as things come up. Alright, see you guys later.